On this week's episode, Allen and I are going to be answering your questions. You'll want to stay tuned for this one.
You're listening to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast, celebrating hunting dog heritage, competition, and community. United Kennel Club has been the hunting dog sports home for coonhounds, beagles, retrievers, pointers, cur, feist, and more for over 125 years.
Welcome back to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast. This is Trevor Wade. I'm the Coonhound Program Manager at UKC, and I'm joined today by the Director of Hunting Ops, Alan Gingrich. What's going on, Alan?
Good morning, Trevor. How are you today?
Hey, doing good. Ready to answer some of the fine folks' questions out there.
Yeah, hey, normally we do these podcasts in the afternoon, but we've done a couple early in the morning. Here's another one we're doing early in the morning. So this is going to be a fun one. It's a mailbag episode, where we're going to cover, 10, 12, 15 mailbag questions, I think. See how far we get reach down in the bag, I guess, huh?
Yeah. But like you said, these are a bunch of questions that I got at hunts over the past several weekends, just hearing over and over again, so I thought it might be good to rehash a couple of them. And also, we put a post out on social media kind of asking for some feedback and some questions. So, I don't know, maybe we talked about maybe making this a monthly or at least, every other month type deal where we answer some of your guys' questions that you're hearing a lot out there. But maybe one to save in your liked episodes to refer to, because there's going to be some of those tricky hunt situations that always seem to pop up in here.
Yeah, so there you have some hunt questions popped up, and we've looked at some of them here, and those will be fun to cover. And then some other registration questions and just little oddball questions, I guess, something non-hunt related, I guess. But yeah, you want to get right to them?
Yeah, let's jump right in. See how
All
many
right,
get answered
let's
here.
start with number one here out of the mailbag. Here's a good one, actually. And this is not a hunt question. It has to do with event dates. Question is, why are the hunt dates for 2026, why do they seem to be a weekend later than what they are this year? And these questions are probably coming from clubs who this year they have on this weekend, as we're recording this is what, June the 18th, so this weekend their dates are going to be looking like the 20th. Well, when they do go to confirm their events for 2026, it's going to look like it's more like the 26th or something, instead of the 8th or the 20th.
Yeah.
Why is that?
This happens. It happens every 6 years. If you go back to the history of UKC, and our online system goes back to 1988, and it's happened every year since then. It's every 6 years. As the calendar goes, it back counts days, one day sooner, and once Labor Day gets to a certain point in August, then in that 6th year it kicks back into September. And our coonhound schedule is entirely based on Labor Day weekend and around Autumn Oaks. Obviously an event that's been around for 60 plus years, and it's been on Labor Day weekend every year. So it's important to us. Our schedule is built around that for us. So this year Autumn Oaks is like August 29th and 30th. And this next year, it's going to kick back 6 days to where Autumn Oaks is in the first weekend of September there, like September 4th or 5th. And having done that 6-day jump is going to happen to all the clubs out there. So don't be surprised when that happens. It's not a big deal. As time will count down over the next several years, and it'll keep going one day back. And every 6 years this happens, and it's just how our schedule worked, and it has always worked.
Yeah, and I'll just add to it, one of the things that clubs will notice with their club dates is, let's say they generally have a date in the last weekend in March, let's say, as an example. Next year we give them the first week of April. They'll say, hey, we've never had an April date. Well, it's because of this calendar shift. It might have bled into April now, what used to be the last of March. But then, like you said, it'll start at a certain date. Then every year it's just one day sooner again till it backs up, and then it does that jump again. But you're right, It has everything to do with Labor Day weekend. Sometimes folks, you hear them say, well, it has something to do with leap year. No, it's not leap year. It's Labor Day is the culprit of that. But yeah, so I think next year, Labor Day in 2026, Labor Day falls on the 4th and 5th, like you said. Labor Day is actually on the 7th next year, whereas this year, Labor Day is, that Monday is September 1st. So that's the difference.
There's your 6-day jump.
There's your 6-day jump right there. Yeah, that's why. Yeah. All right. That was number one.
Yeah, so if you have questions, reach out to us in the hunting ops department. We can kind of tell you what your schedule looking like. Having said that, I'm going to try to work on putting at the end of my major event schedule what a tentative schedule for 2026 looks like, because obviously I know people need to make plans, take off work, and put in vacation as early as they can. So
Yep.
I'm going to try working on that here in the next week or two.
Yep.
Next question here, and obviously it's one that we've we've talked about on this podcast multiple times, written about multiple times over the past year or two, really, and that's explaining the difference between Rule 4F and 5B. Rule 4F pertaining to dogs that are treed but not declared treed when the judge arrives at the tree, and then 5B obviously is our tricky rule coming in, for dogs coming into the tree after the judge arrives at the tree.
Yeah. Hey, I remember. I will start with this one. That is one that I feel like for me, when I started competition hunting, and even after a couple years into it, that one used to get me a little bit. I used to have to think, okay, what's we score it differently for a dog that's there when we arrive versus a dog that comes in after we're there. And it, because I knew that it was something a little different, and that was probably, I always felt like that was one of the last things that still just kind of got me a little bit.
Yeah.
But for me, what I tried to remember that helped me, just for me, was if I could remember, get it in my head, for dogs that come in after, which one of those rules applies. Is it Rule 4F or 5B? And I could go with 5B. 5B applies every time to dogs that come in after you're there. 5B, 5B, 5B. So 5B says 5B, A and B are circle points. Dogs are going to get circle points under the provisions provided under 5A. Same with 5B, but 5B comes with the exception that unless there's a coon seen in the tree, this dog that came in will get penalized, and it will get its strike points minused under 5B. Okay, so that's the difference. Now for dogs that are there when you arrive, that's different now, and it's pretty simple. They are just automatically going to get their strike points minused. Doesn't matter how the tree is scored. And what I think what adds to the confusion a little bit is because this is a newer rule that it used to be you had to score the tree first before you knew how to score this dog. Even for a dog that was there treeing but not declared tree. Rule 4 is what we're talking about. The last rule change, they've simplified that to where, or the way they changed the rule, it does simplify it. Because a dog treeing but not declared treed when you arrive is going to get minus strike points every time. Now there is a exception to that, and that is for a dog that is shut out on strike, meaning there was a dog declared treed on this tree before the dog that is in question went in and even opened or was even declared struck. That's a dog that's shut out, and a dog that is shut out on strike doesn't have any strike points to minus when they're shut out. But that's the only exception. But so that's the difference. A dog that is there treeing but not declared treed when you arrived is going to get its strike points minus every time unless it happened to be shut out and has no strike points to minus. Versus 5B is for dogs that come in after you arrived. Now those dogs are either going to get circled or minused. Never anything else, just circled or minus. You're going to have to score the tree to determine how to score that dog. And it's as simple as if there's a raccoon in the tree, that dog that came in after is going to get minus strike points. Otherwise, it's going to get its strike points circled. If the tree is slick, it's not going to get minus points, or you don't award next available, nothing like that. It's just it's either going to be circled or minus for this dog that came in after, and only minus if there's a coon in the tree. Doesn't matter in champions or what have you if there's off game. The 5B takes precedence over the off game for dogs that come in after. And I will always add this. I've learned this the intent of 5B probably before I came up here, but I've always used it whether you agree with it or not. The intent of that original rule, which is an old rule, was that not to penalize dogs for coming in after you're there, after you're squalling or shining, and having enticed dogs to maybe come in. And the only way would be is if there was a raccoon there, and the thought process was they should have already been there, maybe. So that's it. So whether you agree with that, that was the original intent of and purpose of the rule. And with that, also bear in mind when that intent was created, or when the rule was created, the dogs probably hunted a whole lot different than they do now. So. But the rule never changed, so obviously the intent of it has neither.
Yeah, that's what I was going to add that in there about the intent. That probably helped it drive it home more for me than anything, to make it make sense in my brain. And you covered it well there. Remember, he said it's in the circle. That 5B is in the circle point section. I hear a lot of people are trying to delete those strike points. It's in the circle point section. Be sure you're circling those strike points unless a coon is seen if the dog comes in after a judge arrives. So.
Yep. It's either going to be circle or minus, and if there's a coon there, minus. If it's circle, Y. Just any other time it's circle. Yep.
All right, got my next question here.
Yeah, let me get my glasses on here. Number 3, in what instances do you assign next available tree points to a dog treeing but not declared treed? Hey, that one kind of goes with what we were just talking about. Kind of fits in right here.
Yeah, you kind of it's tied in there with the same rules before, and it used to be, you talked about it in Rule 4F, where you're talking about dogs treeing but not declared treated when you get there. Prior to the 2023 rule change, it used to be that you had to score the tree to see what points to assign and do this and that and the other, and man, the new rule made it a lot simpler, regardless of how you score that tree. Actually, when you get in there, minus the dog's strike points right there, and you don't even have to worry about it anymore. There is no situation in UKC's rule book right now, as it stands, where you assign next available tree points to be minus to a dog. There's no situation where that happens.
And where the confusion might come in, or the question comes in, is there used to be, but there is no longer. Exactly. So there is no instance anymore where you assign next available tree points to a dog. None.
Next one here, our fourth question here has to do with kind of a new thing or maybe not a new thing. It's something I just learned about here within the last 3 months or so, and it's these new Tractive collars, and they seem to be a pretty neat deal. I've been reading up on them a little bit. Really good for people around the house. Letting your dog out, this and that. Good for a coon hunter to put on their dog in the kennel if you're worried about your dog getting out of the kennel or off the chain or something like that. But also pretty handy in a hunt, because you can put this little mechanism on your dog's collar, and it has really good battery life, 10 to 12 day battery life, and you can keep dabs on your dog where it is from your phone there. The thing about these Tractive collars is that they do have a tone or a buzzer feature, as they talk about. So Alan, just to go ahead and address these Tractive collars, they're going to have to be something that judges are keeping an eye on, because they're going to be going against our telemetry rules.
Yeah. Well, if you look to you go into the Coonhound rule book, and this actually applies to our squirrel dog rules, our beagle rules and stuff. It's all the same as when it comes to controlling devices, tracking and controlling devices, basically. So I'm referring to the Coonhound rule book. It falls under section 15. I dug out the rule book for this. You're going to find this when we have this collar that you're mentioning. It has on the handheld device. I'm able to control my dog. I can see where it is with it, as I understand. I've not personally seen one, but when you say it has a tone or a buzzer feature on it, if I utilize that, if I enable that or use that, I am essentially controlling my dog, even though it may not be stimulating. It's considered a controlling device that it's used for that purpose of controlling a dog. So it falls under the same rules as it were if it were a Garmin collar, a Dogtra system, or any other type of shocking or controlling device system. Doesn't matter. And the rule book does not say this is a Garmin rule or a Dogtra rule. It simply differentiates the difference between a controlling feature and a tracking feature. So the rule that applies to this will be no different than in the old days when we had the Tritronics controlling device that just had a stimulation, different levels of stimulation maybe. This would be no different. And the rule, it says this, under section...
Rule 15.
15, section 15 says, under controlling devices, any handheld device Now, as I understand it, Trevor, this will be you can you pull up an app on your phone, right? And that's how you see where your dog is with this little deal. It's called what would you call it? A tractive collar. Probably a little clip or something you put on the dog's collar. I don't know if it's a whatever. But anyways, it says this: any handheld device capable of controlling a dog, stimulating or toning, in this case would be toning, must be left in vehicle and may not be used by handler or spectators until dog wearing device is scratched and all other dogs are recovered for recasting. That's the rule that's going to apply here. So if somebody's using this during the course of a hunt, you would, if your handheld is now your phone, that would mean you'd have to leave your phone in the vehicle. Doesn't say give to another spectator or give to another handler or just not look at it. It says must be left in the vehicle. So I don't know that I don't really know of any hunters that would want to have this on their dog during the course of a hunt. I don't, for that reason. It seems like I need my phone on me more than, I'll probably have other control or tracking devices on the dog other than this. But that rule is going to fall under the same one as as any controlling device. The other thing I want to point out is in our telemetry rule. So I read that from the rule book. Aside from that, we have more general information in our telemetry rules that is available on the backside of a Master Hound's checklist that's read off at every hunt. That is available to anybody that wants to see it, and the part that I want to also include here is under general information. We have this section that is kind of a little bit of an exception when it comes to using such devices like that. Any handheld device capable of both locating and controlling may not be carried by the handler during hunt time. The handheld must be left in the vehicle. Now this is, Garmin's have this, and some of the Dogtras or whatever. You'd have to leave those handhelds in the vehicle. In the case of a Dogtra, that would also be your phone, if you used one of those that the collar was capable of stimulating the dog. However, the handheld may be used during timeout situations, but for locating purposes only. So let's go back to this tractive collar thing. That can never be used for tracking. So you never would be able to use that unless you have your dog scratched. And number two, all the other dogs in the cast are recovered for recasting. They've been handled. So that's not, and this is not a matter of voting. Do we agree? Hey, is it okay with you guys if I just use it right away, even before your dogs are caught? You don't have that option. It's a rule violation, and if that's what you're doing, you're all agreeing to violate the rules. So just, so the one does give an exception for, and it's for like a handheld like a Garmin, for instance, that has both tracking and controlling on it. Okay, I can't carry it with me. I got to leave it in the truck. But the difference is I can use that one during a timeout, but I can only use the tracking feature on it and not the controlling feature. It's a good question, though. There's probably going to be more new technology with that, but I think the thing we want to remember is if you can control your dog with this device, then you can't have the device with you. You can't carry it with you. You got to leave it in the vehicle, whether it's your phone or some other handheld device. Doesn't matter.
Alan, you've been feeding Yukonoba dog feed for a while now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have, and I've really been able to put my beagles to the test, mainly running snowshoe hare up north where they run the hardest, where I put 15, 20, 25 miles on them easily in a day. And I've found that the premium performance sport has really paid dividends. Mainly, I noticed their stamina.
Yeah, same feed that I've been feeding. I think my dog looks good on it. He's really feeling good, and less kennel cleanup for me, so I highly recommend it as well.
Yukonoba, the official performance dog nutrition partner of UKC.
All right, next one that, let me see, back to a rules thing, has to do with the 6 minutes. Do you run the 6 minutes on struck dogs before being able to recast? So I think what it is let's say we have a scenario here where I took my dog off of a tree, out of a scoring situation, off of a tree, and we've got the other dogs declared struck in the cast. No dog is opening up on track. Do I have to sit here, and is the judge going to have to start the 6-minute clock and wait till a dog opens before I can cut my dog loose, or can I cut it loose right away without them having to start the 6 minutes?
Yeah, this one obviously is another one that changed in the 2023 rule book that was voted on. And if you look at the recasting rules, so Rule 11D, and I always talk about Rule 11 as such a great rule, and out of any rule, if there's one to touch up on before an event, it's a good one to look through. But the first couple sentences of Rule 11D will tell you, after being scored, dog may be released immediately or led a reasonable distance, which is a judge's decision, from scored tree before recasting. So that kind of answers our question there. Actually, the way we've talked about it in the advisor column is now the way the intent of the rule and the way it reads is after you pull your dog from a scoring situation, your first priority is to get the dog off the leash, to get the dog cut loose. Now, there is the caveat in the second sentence there that says, however, if another dog in cast is declared treed, handler has the option to recast or keep the scored dog on the leash. So if somebody else in the cast is declared treed, I can keep my dog on the leash to go to the declared dog's tree and score its tree before having to recast again. But to answer the person's question here, the order of operations now will be after pulling a dog from a scoring situation, get to a point to where you're going to cut your dog loose, and then get to where you last heard the struck-in dogs to start running the 6 on them. And I get it. I hear the questions and some of the people that may complain about the rule that's saying, hey, you're going to let another dog, I'm going to let my dog break their 6. And I get that if you're looking at it from a kind of a defensive perspective. And I think it's about, we've talked about this before, Alan, it's all maybe about where you live or where you're competing at, what means more to you, trying to get that dog out there 50 minus points for not barking for 6 minutes, or am I going to waste 6 minutes here when I could cut my dog loose here in northern Indiana and tree a coon in that time? And honestly, some of the intent behind the rule, obviously, at some of our major events, we've seen this happen in some pretty extreme circumstances. We had a handler one time who thought he had heard a dog bark and cut his dog loose before being instructed to by the judge, and got scratched from a world championship for it. And also, I was on a cast of the TOC finals where I watched Joe Manning had to keep his dog on the leash for 26 minutes during that final cast of the TOC finals with a chance to win $50,000, and he has old Dominator on the leash for 26 minutes, I believe it was, to get to the point where we last heard a struck dog, and then run the 6 minutes from there. And man, that kind of, think about that. I'm sure that Joe would have liked to have those 26 minutes when it was all said and done. So that's kind of some of the intent behind the rule, and things that we've talked about after the fact. And we can always look at it from a bad perspective if we after your cast on Friday night, if it affected you in a negative way, you felt like, but there's some positives to it as well. And as I always tell people, hey, there's some rules in the rule book that I may not agree with 100%. Maybe I'd like to see them a little bit different. But that's not really our job. The rules are set as it is. They've been voted on. They've been implemented. And we police the rules. We go by the rules we have in place. And when the time comes, if you don't agree with something, there's always an opportunity to tweak it or this, that, and the other. But right now, we enforce the rules we have in place.
Yeah, so to go back in here, just answer the question just directly is, do you run the 6 on struck dogs before being able to recast? No, not necessarily. When we come off of a scoring tree, I'm going to run my 6 minute clock, but I can start my 6 minute clock. It has nothing to do with when I'm going to turn this dog loose at all. Let's say I need to walk a little bit or get further away from the tree or whatever. I can still start my 6 minute clock right away, but the two aren't necessarily married to each other. In other words, a dog can be cut loose before the 6 starts, or, and generally that's what's going to happen. I'm going to score my dog, take it off the tree, and then I'm going to walk over here and flip it loose, and probably the judge is probably not going to start the clock until after. But it doesn't mean, let's say we got to walk away a little bit of a distance. As a judge, I might start my 6 minute clock is already running right away, but the two aren't necessarily tied together like they used to be.
just depending on if you walked away from the struck dog or
Yeah.
walked out of hearing of it. Possibly.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Those type of things. All right. Hey, that's a good one to cover. Next one here. Let me see. Can you explain how the next available strike rules work specifically after scoring trees? And I guess I'll take that one there. Next available strike is this is a good one. I think I can maybe explain it better, hopefully. And Trevor, jump in if I'm not doing a good enough job of it. But anytime dogs are declared struck, they will, for number one, they hold that position that they're struck in until they're recast. They will hold that position. In other words, let's say you have a dog struck. Let's just use 2 dogs to make it simple here. One is struck for 100, the other one is struck for 75. And the dog that's struck for 100, maybe it trees first. And that tree is scored. It's going to hold that, it can't. We have a dog struck for 75, so when I turn my dog loose, 75 is already being held. I cannot, even though 100 has been scored, it's not available until all strike points are open. In this case, 75 is being held. I cannot strike above. I can't strike for 75. It has to be below whatever is being held. And if it's if you have a 4-dog cast, if they're all 4 struck, all positions are taken, then all I can go in for is 25.
Well, I was going to say, we can point to, again, Rule 11D right here is going to be a big help to us. If you look here in it, and it says, once a position has been scored, it becomes available again, talking about strike position here, and it goes on to say, a dog declared struck after the recast receives the next available strike points. However, the next sentence tells us a dog cannot be struck in over a position that is being held. And then it has the caveat about unless the dog's been holding the strike position for an hour, but that's not what our question is here.
Yeah. But then there's another. Let's say you just have one dog that just falls treat or whatever, and it's the only dog struck or what have you, and then you take a dog out of that position. Then 100 is open again. If there's no other dog holding any strikes, then all the positions become available again.
Yeah. Hey, it's a good question. A lot of us might think that that's simple if you've been around for a while, but I just saw this question on the forums the past couple of days of a guy who's kind of new to it and was trying to figure out, hey, next available is if I'm scored for 100, even if there's dogs struck in for 75, 50, quarter, that's 100's available. Do I get to go back in for 100? Well, it is next available, but you can't strike in over dogs that are already holding those strike positions. So that's where that comes in.
Hey, Trevor, let's also cover another little scenario here while we're talking about, I mentioned that a dog, until it's cut loose, it hangs on to that position, or that position doesn't become available until that dog's cut loose. So what I mean by that is let's say I have 100 on my dog. I just took it out of a scoring situation, scored a tree on it, and I've got first strike on it, had first strike. I lead my dog off this tree, and I still have it on the lead, and no other dog in the cast is open yet. But while I'm walking away to go recast my dog, another dog opens up for the second dog. Now the second dog, it cannot strike in for 100, even though I've already scored my tree and have even walked away from it. If I have my dog on the lead here, I have that 100 locked in until I get him off the lead. No other dog can take that 100 until I have my dog loose.
Yeah, good point. And again, let's bounce back over to Rule 11D. A continuation of what I was talking about there. The very next sentence says the strike position previously held by dogs on leash is not available until dog is recast. Experienced handlers will know, hey, I got 3 barks to play with here for my dog. Yeah. I'm going to try and wait. If I can get 100 strike, I'm going to try and wait for this dog to get off the leash and recast before I strike my dog in. And that's some of some things that come with being experienced at handling and things. You'll learn some of the nuances you'll learn of the rules as you go.
Good point. All right, next one. I'll let you do. Let you do the next one here. Dogs struck to the left ends up with dogs to the right. So let's just, I think this is on the Master Hounds question, actually, test question. A scenario, so we have dog A struck to the left. I always use it at 9 o'clock. And then we have dog B struck running a track at 3 o'clock to the right of us. And let's say dog A leaves its track at 9 o'clock, and goes over here to dog B. It's apparent that they were on separate tracks, and dog A left its track, switched tracks, so to speak. Do they get penalized for that?
Yeah, you're right. This is on the Master of Hounds test, and when we used to grade them, the paper versions of them, it's one that was missed a lot. You know, I don't see the results for the online testing. You kind of have that at your disposal these days, but I would assume that it's one that's still missed a lot. And the answer here is the minus points that come in for dogs are for leaving a track and coming back into the cast, not for dogs switching tracks or jumping from track to track. Honestly, when you think about it, put a judge in that situation, that would be almost impossible to police, because here we're talking about maybe a situation that's very straightforward and easy to judge. But who's to say that dog C, who's running behind us, started, he was on a cold track and he hit something hotter and he switched tracks to a harder track. It would be impossible for a judge to police. So essentially, our rules will tell us that a dog will be minus for quitting its track and coming into the cast, or if the 6-minute clock were to catch them out there, which would be, with other dogs barking, that may not be the case, but those would be how they would be minus on their strike points in these situations, not from jumping from track to track. And I'll take it a step further. I believe that the actual email that I got in, this is actually a question from an email I got in, had to do with dogs striking in it under the minute, which doesn't mean anything really. It's just a grace period where a person doesn't have to strike their dogs. So let's say dog A strikes at the 50-second mark of the hunt, and it's driving a track to the left, and let's say 3 minutes later, a dog opens up to the right, and it's already trying to set up a tree over here, and it's sounding good and loud, and it's a big mouth dog, and all of a sudden here comes, or we don't see dog A, but dog A ends up over here with dog B all of a sudden, and that's not a situation. Doesn't matter if it was struck in under the minute, doesn't matter if it was struck in at 1 hour and 59 minutes. A dog that switches tracks isn't minus their strike points.
Yeah, yep. That's it. I think you nailed it there. There's two things. Dog quits a track that is being worked and comes into the cast. Those two criteria. There's quitting and coming into the cast. Yep. Quitting and going to a different track or a different area, that's okay. It's not going to get minus. Coming in is where they get minus.
Yep.
And that may be another one to take even further. Sometimes I think we all in the Master Hounds test, we use the scenario that a dog was at 9 o'clock and it actually goes over to a dog at 3 o'clock, and in doing so, it comes by the cast. And it just gallops right on by, I think, is the way the scenario gives it, that it's galloping by. And even though we see the dog physically leaving one track, and it still doesn't get minus. And it also doesn't constitute coming in. It might have went by us, but it didn't come in. It was just going by us to get to this other dog. When coming in means to when it actually came into the cast, and it's just kind of done hunting for now.
Yeah.
That's the difference there. Hey, next question comes to Bill Lash from Pennsylvania. Has a bench show question here. Why no doubleheader bench shows? We obviously have doubleheader night hunts, which have been so popular. I don't know what the percentage of clubs that have doubleheaders, but I think it's got to be over half of them are doubleheaders, aren't they? Easily, aren't they?
I think so. Especially when you're looking at the local club levels, man, it works really well. If I got a shot at 2 wins, I might travel a little bit further, and it makes sense, and it's working out.
Yeah. So this one, why no doubleheader bench shows? I don't know. There's a couple things that we'll just briefly touch on here. Maybe is one of the. You always look at the pros and the cons. One of the pros is obviously, hey, go to a show and now I've got a couple opportunities. Obviously you'd want to have it under 2 different judges. If I'm going to go there, Trevor, you're the judge and you're judging both shows. I don't see how that would work very well, because if I didn't win under you in the first show, why would I put my dog in against basically having the same dogs in the show? Why would I show under you again? You're probably going to pick the same dogs again. So that obviously wouldn't work well. And a good reason, if there were doubleheader shows, they should have different judges. But then the other thing, let's say you and I are judging, and I pick one dog. Say we have the same group of dogs or whatever. I pick one dog, and you pick the next one. maybe the bad thing, you'd have to think about is one of us going to get criticized that one knows what they're doing, the other one doesn't? What comes of that? All that talk, so there's some different things. I think what I'm getting at, one of the differences is night hunts. Dogs are judged against a written, based on their performance against a written standard or written criterias or what have you for an evaluation versus, sure, there's an evaluation standards for breed standards and everything in a show, but it's still a little more. It's more subjective to somebody's opinion of versus the dog performing to an evaluation on their performance, so to speak. So I don't know, but I will say this: we have hired Danielle Champ, who is working on some new bench show stuff. And just as we're recording this, you and I and her had a meeting yesterday, a hour and 15-minute session talking about some ideas that she's working on. And we even brought up this whole double header thing. So I think we'll see what she comes up with here with some of the new stuff and see what that looks like. So so to say, why no double headers? I don't know that we're going to say we'll never have double headers, or we will, but we'll see what she comes up with and see what that looks like. So I think we're looking at maybe elevating our bench show programs for one. So whether that's going to include double headers or not, we'll see.
Yeah, but our system isn't currently set up for it, so it's something we'd have to look into investing into. But like you said, been some conversations about how we can do some different things, and it was mentioned. So that's half the battle there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Next question here from our buddy Lane Denny over in Oklahoma, former world champion. Yeah, there we go. Asks, what about a pup hunt? And Lane, hey, it's a good idea. Seeing more and more of these type of special hunts out there. I think I just got back from English Days, which was last weekend when I was sitting here recording this, and at English Days they had a breeder showcase for dogs under 2 years old that they did. That was a licensed event. Walker Days earlier this year in April, they had the pup extravaganza on Saturday night for dogs that are under 2 years old. Black and Tan Days obviously has a pup hunt. Plot Days was the National Plot Association was talking about trying to do some sort of pup deal. So I think that the opportunities are out there. We just have to find the right place and the right people to put on a pup hunt and what it might look like. Allen, you actually had that's talking about just a regular hunt that we limit the people that can enter into it, an open event. But you actually had a pretty interesting idea that I hadn't honestly even thought about.
Yeah, and that was under the Pro Slam rules, under like a Pro Slam rule, or a Pro Slam event, to where I think we would certainly entertain, anybody that would want to have just a pup hunt, like a limited number, like 16 or something, 16 dog pup hunt, Pro Slam. We would definitely consider that. Just be another. It might work better at a alongside of a big hunt than it would just in your local area. I don't know if you could fill a 16 dog pup hunt without expecting people to travel a good distance. That's a lot different than just having an open age event, all age event, but we're always open. We're always open to something like that, so. And I don't know if he's talking about a pup program, I think, or just a pup hunt, but yeah. I think with our rules the way they are, the cast win format, it makes it much easier for us to put on, accommodate clubs and you mentioned the Walker Association. They have a pup hunt, Black and Tan Days and such. But yeah. Hey, the next one comes from Minnesota, Jesse Knappen, blue tick guy up there. He has this question. What does it say here? Whether the 2 minutes applies to dog handled and what to do if cast scores a tree. And on the way to dog that's handled, it no longer barks.
The cast doesn't know where this handled dog. Say we're pulling from
the
a
wording
situation.
Here is a little. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Just say we're, and honestly, this shouldn't happen when you read into it here, because anybody who goes and handles their dog on a split tree should be coming back to the cast to help score the tree. In this situation, it looks like that wasn't the case. So that's the first thing that we'll say is that if you go to handle your dog on a split tree, you need to reunite, get back and reunite with your cast and help them score the tree there.
I see now what it means. We have this rule that a dog's got to, if it shuts up for 2 minutes after it's treed, if it shuts up for 2 minutes, it's going to get minus. So that's what he's talking about, the 2 minutes. So but so the difference is here we have a dog handled already. We're walking back to it. Does the 2 minutes still apply to this dog? That's his question, I think.
And no, once the dog is handled at a tree, you know where the dog is. Hopefully, you pinpoint it somewhere on your telemetry system. That way, you're able to find it. Because some dogs, once they're handled, they've been trained, or they're used to not barking after that. I've been around dogs who were so used to maybe getting several coons. When you get there, once you got them handled, they were in look and see mode, waiting for something to fall from a tree, and they just hush up. But that's once the dog's handled, the work's done for the dog. He can relax, and it's your turn to do some work. So make sure you pinpoint where that dog is and make it back there. It won't be running a 2 on a dog that's already on a leash.
Yep. And the hard answer is that no, the 2 minutes does not apply to a dog that's after it's been handled. Hey, next question. Jesse has his next question too here, and it's walking into a tree. Judge says to handle dogs, instructs the handlers or whatever to handle the dogs that are there. Before a handler can handle his dog leaves. What happens here? And I can tell you a couple things. I will say. Number one, that dog is minus. You don't have 30 minutes or an hour to catch your dog for a delay of the cast or anything. Dog leaves, it's going to get minus. Period. It doesn't matter if you were told to handle it or not. That does not play a part in it. If it leaves, it's going to get minus. And I will take it a step further. That actually happened to me, and where I learned how it really got it sunk into my brain that a dog gets minus. I've already had a situation personally where my dog is split treed on past the other dogs a little bit, and I go into it, and she's on a snag den. And I tie her to a little sapling tree there. I go back to help shine this, and I see the raccoon sitting on top of this snag. I'm thinking, boy, I don't even have to. I can see it without a light. It's not very high. I go back to help them shine this other tree, and it's a big old den tree where the other dogs are on, and we're squalling. We've got all dogs handled, and we're squalling there, and da-da-da-da-da. While we're doing that, we haven't seen a coon over here. All of a sudden, I hear my dog off and trailing again. Like she's trailing this thing, and I had her tied up. So here's the question. I even had my dog tied up. So, and it's just from us squalling that made her coon bailed is what happened. And she went and treated out on the edge of the woods with toe strap or a lead strap in tow, But I remember I had called UKC the next Monday about this situation. Hey, what happens here when a dog's already tied up and it leaves, before we get there to score it? And the answer was the same. It gets minus for leaving. It doesn't matter, if it left for whatever reason. Just in my case, I had it tied up, I guess not well enough, just to a little sapling, and I never thought she'd leave, But, or choose the lead strap. A dog that leaves its tree is going to get minus. So that should, about cover it pretty hard. Or, dog leaves, it's going to get minus. Doesn't matter why it left. Ate its collar or ate its lead strap or busted loose or was tied, wasn't tied. It doesn't matter. Told to handle it and couldn't. It leaves, they're minus.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Johnny Stout, Vance Plant, we're going to hold yours off to the next one. And don't worry, I think we're going to do some more of this stuff. I think we already have 4 or 5 questions there banked. But one question I really wanted to get to, and obviously we saw, the posts we put on social media, there was a lot of questions about registration stuff, and we want to touch on that here because we got some pretty positive updates from that department yesterday we got that. Last week was premiere, and they actually registration turned off their phones on Thursday and Friday of last week, and just focused on processing. And the numbers that they did last week were pretty incredible compared to most weeks, whenever they didn't have to worry about continuously answering phone calls or chats or emails or things like that, and they just focus on processing. And hey, it's gonna help things out in the long run. I think help them get back on time. The email that they sent out a little weekly update to us, just where they're sitting at and this and that for when we talk to customers or we're on the road talking to customers. And mail right now sitting 7 days out, June 10th. So hey, that's encouraging. As of this last update, that's encouraging for me. That makes me feel much better.
Yeah, it does. And I just want to clarify that. I think that applies to the mail that came in. That does not apply to online stuff. So they're further out than that. That's the mail that was mailed in. But they're working on getting that online stuff caught up as well, so yeah.
The online stuff is going to be a good deal. I've talked to a bunch of people at the events who are going this way. It's easy. It's
one thing it's here because okay, you have folks saying, well, mail is just using the mail as being an excuse. Well, guess what? As soon as it happens to you, then you're going to learn it's not, because we do a lot of mail up here, and we find it all the time. What used to might take 3 days, sometimes still gets here in 3 days or 5 days. It might be 3 weeks too, and it might just never show up. So the online thing is at least you can get it here, and we have record of it, and you can get dogs in your name and this and that, but hey, they have struggled. They know, and they've struggled for too long. It's frustrating for you and I, because some of those calls get leaked into our hunting ops department as well, and we're always willing and wanting to help our customers, of course. It's a different department, and but the one thing that I will suggest that doesn't help is they have a pretty big turnover. And one of the reasons they have a turnover is disgruntled folks calling in, getting a random customer service agents, and heaven forbid it's somebody that's half new, and they just start chewing their butts for it and just giving them the he-hove over it. Guess what? There's been a lot of them that have been run off because of that, and it's frustrating. I guess my point here is that I want to make, if you have any of our hunting ops folks that want to vent a little bit, and instead of hey, call me, ask for me, and vent to me, don't it doesn't help any. It just slows them down. If you're on the phone with them chewing their butts for 10 or 15 minutes, guess what? They probably could have done 5-10 applications processed in the time that it I don't know. Just trying to make that point.
Yeah, for sure. And
we understand the frustrations, but hey, sometimes you're the person you're kind of chewing, for your frustrations or whatever, is probably not the one that needs to be chewed to.
Yeah,
and you can chew my butt if you want to take it out on me. Vent to me.
There you go. So an encouraging update yesterday. Hopefully we start seeing the fruits of these recent updates, and online will be the next thing. They're gearing a lot of their help, and they got more people working remotely who can focus on those online applications. So hopefully we see a pretty big dent into some of that online stuff in next week's update. So hey, maybe in the next mailbag we just touch on it again and see where they're at there, and see where they progress there. Yep. But man, hey, I appreciate everybody sending in their questions. Feel free to keep them coming. Hopefully we can do this every month or so, every 6 weeks, something like that, and get some questions answered. And we touch on a lot of rule stuff today, a lot of coonhound rule stuff. But hey, I'm not opposed to we could talk about squirrel rules or rabbit rules. What questions are you guys hearing out there? Get them sent in to us, and don't be afraid to comment on our social media stuff or send emails or whatever you need to do. So appreciate you guys listening always. As always, it's an exciting time of year for everybody. We're gearing up for a fun fall, and hope to see you guys down the road somewhere.
Hey, Allen, I don't know if you've been messing around with this new Houndsman Advantage app at all, but I've been playing with it some, and it has some really cool features on it. One, it has the interactive scorecard view where you can assign strike and tree points at the touch of a button, and it automatically totals your scores after each set of points are scored and valued.
Yeah, no, I like it as well. Some of the features that I like is that you can access the rules, and that it comes with a search function to easily find any specific rule. Also like that there's a place for your dog's registration numbers, and you can store pictures of your easy entry cards. I like that you can track two dogs' performances when out pleasure hunting. You'll find some analytics on your dogs. You can record their accuracy, win percentages, and a whole lot of things like that.
No more lying here on this app. The last thing about the scorecard I'll talk about is it has the summary view as well, where you can see the total points you have and the pending points that you have, along with tree timers for each dog. So it's going to come in handy for judges as well. So check it all out on the new Houndsman Advantage app. Thank you for listening to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast. Be sure to give us a follow so you don't miss any of our new episodes or content.